Story 1. Roughly 1/3 of your life is spent sleeping. Another 1/3 is spent working. In between those is commuting, chores, waiting in line, browsing streaming services looking for something to watch, scrolling, showering, brushing teeth, and eating unexciting food. The younger you are, the less you should press that button, as the ratio of personhood building memories versus slog is high, but you could probably stand to give it a few presses. The older you are, the more you should press that button nonstop. A 90-year-old should press the button and keep pressing it until they die. A 40-year-old should press that button until they feel comfortable for the rest of their life. There is a theoretical risk where the button giver could erase important or precious memories, but the prompt specifies random erasure, so that risk is not considered here. It is assumed that the button erases the memory of those hours, not that it erases the hours themselves, as erasing actual events would cause temporal paradoxes. For example, if the hour your child was born were erased, the child would not exist, which is inconsistent. Therefore, only memories are erased to avoid fabric of the universe damaging anomalies. Story 2. Does it remove all the consequences of what happened in that hour, or does it only remove the memories? If it also undoes all the consequences, then there are several dozen hours that could undo the entire rest of my education because it removed an important test I needed to pass in 5th grade. Story 3. 99% of people spend tens and hundreds of hours to make $10,000. What makes you think we would not do the same? Story 4. Erasing from memory, sure. It would be unpleasant in some instances, but I would be okay. However, erasing from existence, as if it never happened, sending a ripple effect into my life as it stands right now? Absolutely not, not even for $10 million. Story 5. Oh, in a heartbeat several times. I do not remember the majority of my life because my memory is poor. Also, most of my time is spent sitting at home playing video games or at work. I would press it until I had 2 million, pay off mine and my family's debts, buy everyone new cars, build a small house somewhere, and retire. Story 6. If it could take away the hour my intoxicated father physically abused my mother and me on Christmas Eve after I had opened my Transformers Series 1 Megatron that I had wanted for a very long time and went to bed traumatized for life, yes, I am pushing that button. After all these years, I still cannot see that toy without having flashbacks. Story 7. I would sell the button to a technology entrepreneur for $50,000 after calling it a disruption device, then let him worry about the button. Story 8. Press. Story 9. I spent most of my childhood and teenage years in a drug-induced haze, ruining my life. That button has a high likelihood of improving my situation in more ways than one. Story 10. Could it be any hour? I mean, a random hour from past memories or an hour off the end of my life. I think either way, it's a yes for me. Story 11. Is that hour in my past or future? I'm not sure that would make a difference. I would likely press it either way. Story 12. Well, $10,000 for giving away an hour of your life. To make $10,000 with an average or even above average income will require more than 1 hour of work. So is losing one random hour or working multiple hours to make the $10,000 more important? I would take the $10,000. Story 13. Does it just erase the memory of that hour, or does it actually rewrite the hour to never have happened? Story 14. You are all saying it erases an hour that you have already lived. I read this and assumed the hour could be in the future. You press the button, and one day you are an hour ahead, having no memory of how you got to where you are or why. Story 15. I have lived over 200,000 hours. Probably less than 1,000 are still in my memory, and if it does hit one of those, I will not remember what I am missing. I am pressing that thing 2,500 times and enjoying that $10 million, making many more memories. Story 16. Do you forget that hour? Or does it just erase all evidence of your existence during that hour? Is the punishment risking forgetting everything for wealth? Or am I willing to let everyone and everything forget me for wealth? Because sure, I would definitely let people forget me for money. My family would be very confused about where all this money is coming from and who I was. Every time they ask, I would just give them some money. Story 17. $10,000 to have a 1-hour blackout? Considering the number of people who have done this by drinking, myself included, for no money at all, This should be an easy decision. Press the button. Story 18. Are we talking about erasing one's memory of the hour or the effects, as if that hour never happened? The odds of that 1 hour being something of significance are extremely slim. Even if it is something of great significance, there are many other significant hours to soften the blow. In short, yes, I will take it. Story 19. Erases 1 hour, including everything I achieved during that hour or my memories of that hour. I barely remember anything from the first 18 years of my life. College was a blur. I spent my 20s drinking in graduate school, and in the early years of my career when I was broke. Not to mention all those hours sleeping. I have been alive for over 420,000 hours. I'll take the chance that I'll lose nothing of significance by pressing that button 1,000 times, or 0.2% of my life. Story 20. First of all, I watched Shrek Forever After, so I know your dirty Rumpelstiltskin tricks about taking away the hour I was born. Second, I am pushing that button like I am playing cookie clicker. Either I get a lot of money or I stop existing, so that is a win-win. Story 21. Anyone who normally sells their time for less than $10,000 per hour and says that they would not press the button is not behaving rationally. Story 22. A random hour? Some quick math, that is 1 out of 367,000. I am hitting that button about 1,000 times before I start questioning it. Story 23. A couple of times. Odds are I lose a sleeping hour, and if those are off the table, then even the amount of random commute and idle work hours is so large that the risk is very low. Story 24. Yes. At least 30 times. That will get me enough money to retire. Probably around 100 times. That will let me retire and live comfortably for the rest of my life. Story 25. Vast areas of my memory have already been lost due to an extensive history of child abuse. My older brothers often ask me, "Do you remember that difficult time when?" No, I do not. If I could get paid for not having that memory, I would consider that a win. Story 26. Is it a truly random hour? Because odds are I would just spend an hour playing World of Warcraft or something similar. Story 27. I only use it when my hour is worth less than 10,000. Once I raise enough capital, I will not use it again. Story 28. Yes, I assume the random hour will be selected randomly, so it is unlikely to hit anything significant. Story 29. Me forgetting an hour of my life for $10,000? No brainer. Because really, I am likely doing that already over time, so why not just pocket cash? Story 30. I was in a car accident in 1991 and hit my head pretty hard. A year later, I realized that I did not remember much of the previous 20 years. What is another month and a half? Story 31. Are we talking future hour or past hour? Either way, I'm clicking that thing like a Bic pen with a nervous tick. I already don't remember most of my past. It won't be much of a change. Story 32. People lose an hour of life working for someone else for $15 to $1,000 per hour, so why not trade 1 hour for $10,000? Story 33. I have white matter disease. The protective layer around the neurons in my brain is dissolving. So I already have that button. It will get pressed faster and faster, and I do not even get upset. Story 34. Plot twist. Every time you press the button, it removes the hour during which you pressed it and received your $10,000. Story 35. If it is an hour in the future, I would press it a few times, but I will not go wild. If it is in the past, I would press that button until pressing it becomes the beginning of my existence. Story 36. I am going to press that button so many times it breaks into a million pieces under the weight of my momentum. Story 37. I would work hard until I had enough to retire tomorrow. I could lose a few hundred hours of memories without any issue. Story 38. Since that hour was erased, will I know it was erased? If not, I would be living my life as I am now, but $10,000 richer. Story 39. Does the hour get erased entirely, as if it never happened at all? Or do we just lose the memory of it? Story 40. Odds are in my favor, it seems. 1/3 of the hours are sleep, another 1/3 are work or school. Free time has not been all that great. I could do with 10,000. Story 41. This is not really a challenge. If the hour is erased, you will not even be aware it is gone. Unless it is the hour that you got married or bought a winning lottery ticket, $10,000 is a pretty good hourly rate. Story 42. I mean, isn't work exchanging time for money anyway? And I make a whole lot less than $10,000 per hour at the moment. Story 43. I do not really remember my 30s at all, plus a few years on either side. If I could get a retroactive $10,000 per hour, that would be great. If not, I would hit that button about 1,000 times. My brain will not be that much worse off. Story 44. Yes. The question is, how many times am I allowed to press it? 10 times costs me the equivalent of one long night's sleep, but leaves me with enough money to cover my mortgage and all my other debts. Another 100 or so presses and I have still lost less than a week. But now I have enough money to retire a couple of decades early if I am careful. Story 45. Well, I was going to say I need 200,000. But on reflection, there are 2 hours that would therefore be on the table. You could not find enough value or power in the world to trade for them, so I would have to decline. Story 46. I erase 8 hours of my life every day I go to work for less than $10,000. I would hit it 1,000 times and collect $10 million. I would earn at least 6% on that, betting $600,000 per year in perpetuity. Story 47. I would press it multiple times. That random hour will more than likely be something I do not even remember anyway. The first 3 years of life have over 26,000 hours. Take them all as far as I am concerned. Story 48. I do not accept the button. Money, though necessary, is a pain, and how does that not sound like a scam to avoid at all costs? Money is the problem, not the solution. That, and lack of a work ethic. Story 49. Truly random? Oh, I am beating that thing. While there are definitely memories I would regret losing, the vast bulk of my hours are not worth $10,000. And that is true for almost anyone, I would guess. Story 50. If it was memories only and you pressed it multiple times, if it was truly random, a third of the hours selected would be hours spent sleeping, and another third, for adults anyway, would be spent working, commuting, and generally doing fairly mundane things. For a 40-year-old who has lived more than 350,000 hours, hitting the button 10 times has a very small chance of erasing something very important. Story 51. It is the memory of that hour, correct? Not that you stopped existing during it. Is it only hours that have transpired? Or can you theoretically forget an event that has not happened yet? Story 52. Like the memory of it or whatever happened during the hour, and the rest of my life takes a different route from there. Do I just not remember my wedding, but it happened, and I have the video of it and all that? Or does it mean the hour time frame when my child was conceived? I only needed 2 minutes of that hour, and he no longer exists? If it's the first scenario, I'm pressing that button 1,000 times. Most likely, it's an hour that means nothing, that I don't even remember anyway, or even better, I was sleeping during it. Story 53. Past hour or future hour? Or either. If it is only future hours, I would press it until I had enough money to comfortably live the rest of my life without worrying about money. I could erase 1 year, a single year, and have $87 million. Removing a single year to live the rest of my life stress-free is extremely worth it. If it is only past hours, well, that one gets interesting. I would probably still press it toward the same goal, but who knows if I would change my mind at some point. If it is both, I would probably do the same as above, only double that. Story 54. Absolutely. I am asleep 1/3 of the time and working 1/3 of the time. That is a 2/3 chance I will not miss that hour. Story 55. If that hour also removes the consequences related to what happened during that hour, there is an hour that I would like to have removed. Story 56. I have been selling my time for $60 an hour before taxes. I guess I will take 10,000. I know it says one random hour, but it is statistically likely to be an hour I spent sleeping or working. Story 57. I would not press it once. Every second of life is as precious as the next. I cherish every moment. I would absolutely press that button. Story 58. How many times can I press it? I have about 400,000 hours to use. Let's say 10%. I trade 40,000 hours for $400 million. Story 59. I have actually done activities like watching paint dry and watching grass grow. There are also my many hours spent playing Call of Duty that I no longer need. Story 60. Sure. Why not? I have a poor memory anyway, so if it is erasing my past, I probably would not even notice. The chances of it randomly erasing an important hour are very slim, especially considering how many hours of the day are spent doing nothing important like sleeping or resting. I would be hopeful trying it about 10 to 12 times, and then hopefully having no issues. The odds are in my favor. Story 61. I have often forgotten random moments in my life. Why not earn money from it? No single hour of my life has been so important that I need to remember it forever. Story 62. Don't most of us already do that for more than 8 hours a day? I regularly forget hours, days, or weeks for free. Show me the money. Story 63. Absolutely not. A lot can happen in an hour. What did I do? What don't I know? I've made about 1,000,000 mistakes in 0.02 seconds. No thanks. Story 64. I am so dumb. I read it wrong. But yes, I would press it until, I don't know, 1,000,000 because I already have some memory loss. Story 65. Yes. I need roughly $3,000 a month to pay all of my bills. If I press the button once a month, then that is better than getting drunk and blacking out and my bills are paid. Story 66. Sure thing, I forget so much stuff. Now I can earn some money with it. Story 67. I think I would be willing to push it up to 24 times. I can only think of about 6 cherished moments within an hour. I am over 350,000 hours old. I feel the odds are good that it will not land on something important. $240,000 would be enough to improve my wife's and my situation dramatically. Story 68. I think I would be willing to push it up to 24 times. I can only think of about 6 cherished moments contained within an hour. I am over 350,000 hours old. I feel the odds are good that it will not land on something important. $240,000 would be enough to improve my wife's and my situation dramatically. Story 69. I don't really have happy memories to save, and if it is a random hour, it is likely to be when I am asleep or driving. Story 70. I have 359,000 hours. I could earn $10 million for clicking 1,000 times and lose 0.2% of my hours. The likelihood that I lose any actually important hours, or enough important hours to make any negative impact on my life, would be worth not working another day. Story 71. I would pay off my house and have some money left over since I only owe $147,000 on it. Imagine that I could get an easier job. Story 72. I pressed it many times. The chance of removing an hour I actually care about is so low that it is ridiculous, and the ones I would not trade for $10,000 are like maybe 2 or 3 times in 34 years. Story 73. I have more than enough hours to trade. Plus, if I could forget a few games and replay them anew, yes, please. Story 74. I'm pressing that button until I am too young to press it anymore. Unless you mean wipes my memory, in which case I am pressing it until I do not know why I am pressing this button anymore. Story 75. Are you kidding? I would press that button quickly, and I have a lot of practice from video game quick time events. As others have explained, the odds are very good that you are erasing things that do not matter. Story 76. Erases a memory of an hour? Sure. Erases an actual hour for which consequences can cascade and actually change my history and current life outcome? Not a chance. Story 77. I do not know, you guys. Erases an hour of your life means more than just the memories to me. You have lived a certain number of hours. After the button is pressed, you have lived 1 less hour. This sounds to me like you disappeared for a while at some random point in the past. That could have some serious consequences. Story 78. Absolutely, I already suffer from memory loss. Everything older than about 5 years ago starts getting a little fuzzy. Anything older than 10 years ago is more like a history book. I am aware that certain things occurred, like they are events on my timeline, but I do not actually remember them. Story 79. I press it. I have a poor memory and a good job that is unrelated to any exams I have ever passed. Story 80. What do you mean by erases? The memory, the actual events, just the past or potential future hours. Story 81. I don't remember almost any of my life, so I'm going until at least 10 million. That is only about a month and a half, so maybe I'll go higher. Story 82. I press many buttons daily to have 8 hours of my life erased for much less. So yes, give me that button. Story 83. I have the memory of the party we had after my grandfather's funeral. I was too young to understand why my granddaddy was gone. I miss him every day. We love you, Granddaddy, and we miss you. Story 84. Pretty high odds of forgetting it anyway. An hour also isn't so significant that I actually lose something not remembered elsewhere. Story 85. I do not remember what I had for breakfast this morning. It is unlikely to affect me. So yes, if you received 10,000 every time you pressed it, I would slap that button until it broke. Story 86. Reminds me of a Twilight Zone episode. Someone gets a knock at the door and is offered a large sum of money if they press the button on a box given to her. The only consequence is that someone she does not know will die. Story 87. I have a very literal mind, so I interpret this question as erasing you from the timeline for one random hour. For example, you are out dining with your family at a restaurant. Then, poof, you disappear and your family starts panicking. The police are called. They arrive on the scene, bring your family in for questioning, and conclude they are probably insane. Their damaged sanity may land them in a mental institution. You reappear 1 hour later in the exact spot you vanished from, which at this point may be occupied by another diner. This situation becomes science fiction. Freaky, because how can two people exist in the same literal space? One or both of you would be severely disfigured or dead, and if one remains alive, it is probably not without the other's exploded remains on them. If the worst should happen to you, pressing the button erases the current you from the timeline since you died in the past, like in the movie Back to the Future. But the question does not specify that this occurs in the past, meaning the erased hour may still be in your future. You might press the button, receive your $10,000 and think, wow, that was easy, not realizing that you now have a proverbial sword of Damocles hanging over your head. If this inspires you to press the button again, it may be too late by the time you realize pressing the button is not harmless. Story 88. Hell yes, I do. I spend 2,080 hours a year sitting at a desk, being bored out of my mind, and I make way less than $10,000 an hour for that time. Story 89. While I pressed it a couple of times, maybe 100,000, I've had plenty of beautiful memories, and many difficult ones as well, but all of them combined made me. We are our past. It's almost like deleting yourself. It really doesn't sit right with me. Story 90. I read once that when you remember something, you are not actually remembering the event. You are remembering the last time you remembered the event. It did not make much sense to me, but if true, I will press on. If anything good gets deleted, I will just remember the previous time I remembered the event. Story 91. An hour of sleep. I'm good. It would be like when time goes forward in the spring. Random. I would be cautious but potentially push it once. Story 92. If this button only removes memories, I would press it endlessly. I have congenital short-term memory loss. I forget countless moments in my life and people sometimes even within the same day. I might as well get rich off something that already happens to me. Story 93. I am not risking any of my life for money or losing any thoughts I had in that hour. It is all part of the continuity of my development. What if it was some precious moment? What does erase even mean? Who is offering me this and what do they gain from it? Interesting question, though. Story 94. Even if these were my best hours, only my most profound and most beautiful memories, I would press it 100 times. Yes, I will take 1 million at 28. Story 95. Only 1 hour? Can I press the button multiple times? I would erase more hours than you can imagine. Story 96. I would press it until it erased an hour that was worth more to me than $10,000. I wouldn't smash it but press, evaluate, and so on. People talk about erasing an exam hour and how that would be bad. But why? If I were to erase all my job qualifications but walk away with $100 million, which is only 16 months of your life, by the way, you don't need those. I also have many more bad hours than great ones. Story 97. I hold on to it, then start hammering on it as soon as they put me into hospice. I have lived the part of my life I want to live at that point and can create a jackpot for my descendants while also avoiding a lot of misery. Win-win. Story 98. Just about the only people who would not are too rich for $10,000 to be worth the energy expenditure. By the time you are 12 years old, you have lived 6 digits in terms of hours. Considering roughly 2/3 of that time is spent sleeping, being quiet at school, or in later years working, the risk of losing any very treasured or important memories is infinitesimally small. I think the whole hypothetical needs to change to really capture any gravity. Suppose the process of pressing the button gives you $1,000 each time and can be pressed once per day. How often would you press it? Story 99. I give you a button that makes you rich and immortal. Do you press it? I have seen enough movies to know this is a trap. Story 100. Odds are it erased sleep. Big deal. There is a 0.0000001% chance it affects anything I care about, and even if it did, I would not know because it is gone. I am pressing that button until it breaks. Story 101. Sure. I lose hours of my life anyway, might as well get paid. Assuming by erase you mean forget. Story 102. Statistically, most hours of my life have been spent doing nothing productive, either sleeping or goofing around. Most of your life you do not remember anyway. I could definitely risk about 2,000 presses. Actually, let's do the math. If you are 30, you have lived over 250,000 hours. 2,500 presses gets you 25 million, and you lose 1% of your life. That is my move. Maybe every 5,000 presses, the chances of losing anything that matters are slim. Story 103. There aren't really any critical hours that changed my life, and there are many wasted hours. Half of life is spent sleeping and eating. I will not risk it, but 10 times is safe enough. I do not like to gamble. Story 104. So you were saying I can keep smoking cigarettes, and it cancels out as long as I press the button every time I light up? Story 105. Keep the money, but I can think of 3 incidents off the top of my head that need to be erased, not just my memory of them. I just thought of another. I had friends in my car, and my friend's girlfriend was screaming in my ear. The accident could have been avoided. I am glad to see that graduated licenses exist these days. Story 106. Afghanistan took many hours of my life, so one could say I was underpaid with the $20,000 they gave me. Story 107. Depends on how it is being erased. Like it never happened or I do not remember. Either way, push the button. Story 108. Do you know how many hours of my life I have paid money to erase with alcohol? At least this way I would have something to show for it. Story 109. Absolutely. As you accumulate more hours, the odds of any random hour being important decrease significantly. Honestly, I don't think I would even remember. Story 110. I have terrible memory, almost like amnesia. I would set up something to automatically press that button for days. Story 111. I randomly lose chunks of my life all the time. It happens to me every time I smoke a little marijuana. Story 112. I feel like most people would say they would choose to erase 1 hour of sleep so it would not matter anyway. However, there are a handful of memories that span 1 hour or less that I could live without remembering my whole life. One just happened about a month ago, actually. I wish I could just erase it from my mind. So yes, I would take the button for 10,000. I would take a few. Story 113. In the past year alone, I have spent 2,000 hours at a computer with a boring job, probably another 1,000 hours too exhausted to remember, and approximately 25% of the year sleeping. Yes, I am committed to that. Story 114. I have been very blessed with some of my life's experiences and I would not want to lose them. They are final, no more searching. I have had the best husband. I have had the best lover. I have had the most fun day ever. I have been beautiful. I am satisfied. Thank you, Lord. Story 115. We spend a third of our lives working instead of pursuing our interests. Roughly 20 years, or 175,000 hours, are dedicated to work. Pressing the button 100 times, burning 100 hours, and then living comfortably afterwards seems to be the right choice. Story 116. Take a day. I'll take $240,000. I have lived nearly 430,000 hours thus far. Losing 24 of them is not going to matter much, but the gain of $250,000 sure will matter a lot. Story 117. Random? Probably not. Too many cherished memories to lose. If I could choose them, now that is something I could go for. Story 118. If it was erased an hour before my child was conceived, then he would not have been born. A different child might have been, but not the one I have. So no. Story 119. If it is a past hour, do you lose the memory of it, or did it just never take place? If it never took place, does that mean I am an hour younger? If it is a future hour, do I just not remember the events of 1 hour in the future? Do I lose an hour at the end of my life? Do I lose my next immediate hour? How do other people perceive my loss of time? This all factors into my decision. Story 120. You struggle with math. I would press the button about 60 times and get a great free house. 50% of the time would be sleeping. 40% would be work or school. 1% would be pooping or showering. 3% would be housework. 2% would be watching bad movies or TV shows I forgot I even watched. Think about how many truly core memories you really have. 99.9% of the times you press that button wouldn't affect you. Story 121. Do you know how many hours of my life I don't remember anyway? 1/3 of your life you're asleep. I would estimate at least a few dozen. Story 122. So I would potentially be paid $10,000 an hour, and 1/3 of that potential lifetime could be sleep. Yes, I am good with that. Story 123. If I were younger, it would be a definite yes until I forgot that I have depression or forgot everything up to that point. Now, no way. I would not want to risk losing any memories of my son. Story 124. I don't think any single random hour has been significant enough in my life for me to care if it disappears. Can it be an hour from the future as well? Story 125. Since I have spent approximately 1/3 of my life sleeping, and I do not remember at least my childhood, which is about 20 to 30% of my life, and since most of the rest is probably wasted time, I would press that button until it breaks. Story 126. This has to be the worst hypothetical I have seen in a while. You did not even try to make it difficult. Story 127. With my luck, it would remove all the hours I slept, and then I would suddenly die of sleep deprivation for not having slept a single hour over 25 years since I am 50 now. Story 128. Does it also take into account hours slept and hours not remembered already? I mean, I am 33 and barely remember anything before middle school. If it counts every hour since birth, even if it is not something you physically remember, then yes, I would use it a few times. I cannot really think of anything that could be lost that I will not already lose in the next 50 years. I would probably use it at least 100 times. I would trade 4 days of memories for $1 million. Story 129. Absolutely. I would push it until I had at least 5 million. I would already give my life for my family, and I am taking the odds it is mostly sleep, boring routine work, which I have tens of thousands of hours of, or maybe reading a book or watching a show, which I can just do again. Story 130. So you were telling me I can get $1 million if I lose just over 4 days worth of my life in random hour intervals? Absolutely, I would do that. With $1 million plus what I already have, I would never need to work again. Story 131. Totally, there are a few things I would like to forget. I saw things when I was little that I wish I had not seen, experienced, or at least remembered. Story 132. If I was just unconscious that hour, I would erase the hour when I bought $8,000 of National Basketball Association playoff tickets, hoping to make a tidy profit. Then the market got flooded with cheap tickets, and I lost $4,000 just to sell them. That is a $14,000 swing right there. Story 133. My brain will erase a random hour of my life just because long-term memory is not as reliable as we think. It does this for free. Where is this button? Story 134. Does this erase all the consequences of the hour? or just the hour itself? If it deletes the hour that contains the time I conceived my child, will that also prevent my child from being born? Or will I just no longer have that hour in my memory but still have my child? Because if my child gets deleted, I lose many more hours of my life than the one it promised to delete. If it only removes the hour and allows the rest of my life to remain unchanged, that is, the conception of my child is deleted from my life but the child remains, I would probably press it about 200 times. Statistically speaking, it is most likely to remove an hour of sleep or work than any particular hour I care about. If it affects the rest of my life too, butterfly effect style, I would not press it. I would end up losing many more hours that I care about than just the one that gets deleted. Story 135. Yes, I press that button 8 times a day, once a day, every year. Now, I make a modest living and only lose 8 hours a year instead of every day. Story 136. Sure, why not? I have some good memories. I might lose something I treasure, but it is far more likely to erase something I never wanted to begin with. I have a ton of memories I do not want. If I can get paid to lose them, then by all means sign me up. Story 137. My daily whiskey intake is already erasing random hours from my life. I may as well get some money for the trouble. Story 138. There is no 1 hour of your life you could lose memory of that would be of any consequence at all. Only good things would happen. Story 139. I would press the button maybe up to 5 times. 5 hours out of my life, chances are nothing changes too much, but I am $50,000 richer, which is not early retirement money but still nice enough. I will keep the button for a few decades. Story 140. Past hours? Just the memories, not the actions? Do you completely forget what you learned in that hour, especially if it has been used or reinforced since? With the right answers, I would play that thing like the fire button on a game of asteroids. Story 141. I have memory issues and may not remember it anyway, so why not? Wait, have I been pushing the button? Where is my money? Story 142. Does it erase an hour in the past or in the future? If it erases an hour in the past, then yes, until I reach a couple million. If it is from the future, probably not. Story 143. I would never push it. What if it erased the moment I conceived or bore one of my children? No thank you. Story 144. I was in the United States Army. Chances are very good I would lose some hours watching paint dry on a hot tarmac. I would actually be happy to lose a few of those. Story 145. Another way of thinking about this is making a 6-figure salary, let's say approximately $120,000 a year, in exchange for 12 hours of work. The number of hours gained by not working is absolutely worth sacrificing 12 hours a year. Put another way, even if I lose 12 of the best hours of my life when I press that button, I will enjoy a third of my life, typically devoted to work, more than I otherwise would. So yes, using that button once a month is like my salary. Story 146. Once again, this is another question about free money where the consequence is so low that no one will question doing it. Story 147. Not without knowing which hour will be erased. Not for $10,000. If I am going to lose a potentially significant memory, I would not even consider it for less than $1 billion. Story 148. What does erase mean? Just the memory? Or does it literally erase that hour from history? If it erases a school exam, will it negatively affect my life thereafter? There are 24 hours in a day. 8 hours are for sleeping, and 4 hours are easily wasted on not doing anything. A lot of time is wasted doing inconsequential activities, say another 4 hours. That means 2/3 of the day could easily be lost without consequence. Most days we don't do anything that cannot be easily rescheduled. Let's say 5 out of 7 days. That means 6.33 out of 7 days a week become quite inconsequential if an hour goes missing here or there. After pressing the button 7 times, you have a 50% chance something somewhat important was erased. Important is being generous because most of us barely ever do anything actually important. I would press it a couple of times. Story 149. I have blacked out almost daily for the last decade of my life. 1 hour for $10,000 would be easier to do than it should be. Story 150. You could not trade me any amount of money for the moment my daughter was born. I would never risk it, and definitely not for $10,000. Story 151. You could erase half of my 33 years of life without changing a single thing about me. Depression and blackouts are very difficult. Story 152. Less than 0.0005% chance that I would erase an hour of one-on-one time I spent with my autistic nephew when he was 3. I watched him examine and experiment with the water coming out of the kitchen sink faucet for about 55 minutes. His only words the whole time were, "It's a water fountain." So no, I would not do it. Story 153. I am going to live like a divine being for about 2 years. My tomb will make the Taj Mahal look like a rundown Kentucky Fried Chicken. Story 154. And risk missing the birth of my child? Or risk not saying goodbye to my dying mother? Or risk not meeting the love of my life? Or not being there for the last breaths of some of my earlier pets? Or risk not submitting my special application to college one night before the deadline and getting admitted without the needed prerequisites? Keep your stinking $10,000. My life was not always eventful or special in any way, but I am really happy things turned out the way they did. Strong believer in the butterfly effect. I am not messing with any butterflies. Story 155. No, I would not want to risk erasing a memory that was the only good thing I had left of a loved one who was gone or a hard-learned lesson. Story 156. Future or past hour. There is a whole I have already forgotten, and I am more likely closer to the end than the beginning. Story 157. Statistically, it will erase one random hour of me either asleep or watching a screen. So yes, I will take that bet. Story 158. The chances are that hour was not important. I pressed it 100 times and got to make a lifetime of new memories. Story 159. I press buttons for 8 hours a day for significantly less than $10,000 an hour. There is basically no reason I would not do this. Story 160. Unless you make more than $10,000 an hour, this question is ridiculous. Push. Story 161. I am putting my affairs in order, establishing in my will that my niece and nephews receive all my money, and then living fully until I have 1 hour left to live. Then I will have the best hour of my life before dying. Story 162. I could possibly review the material and watch or read it for the first time again while becoming wealthy. Story 163. So $87.6 million for a year off your life. My counter is that having that much money arguably negates that year taken off my life and likely gives me more time in the end. Being a multimillionaire gives you access to the best in healthcare and provides a healthier lifestyle than a typical person. I would say that you might lose that year, but being a multimillionaire buys you at least 5 more. I would say pressing the button to reach that level of wealth is absolutely a net positive. Story 164. No, I do not regret a single hour I have lived. Every part of my life has made me who I am today, let alone an hour. Story 165. Sure, statistically it is a mundane hour or an hour I am asleep. Or maybe one of the hours of childbirth. I am willing to take that bet. Story 166. I have hit my head so many times that I have forgotten most of my childhood. I am pressing that thing until I am wealthy. Story 167. Interesting question. Presuming the context of erase refers to the memory of that hour, it is worth noting that although we sleep for a third of our lives, we do not really have a memory of those hours. We do not have a vivid memory of every single hour we have sat in traffic, played a video game, or similar activities. We create memories usually of memorable events and do not really remember most banal hours of our lives. So, if the question requires that you have an actual conscious memory of that hour, then I would not press the button because it is quite likely that something meaningful would be erased. If it is literally a random hour out of all the hours we have been alive, sleeping as a baby when you do not remember anyway, driving, grocery shopping, and so forth, then the probability is high that you would not be erasing anything precious. Still, I would probably press it more on an as-needed basis. Presuming we get to keep the button forever and I have no children to leave money to, I would likely press it only when I needed money for something rather than making myself wealthy in one button pressing spree. Story 168. By erasing an hour of my life, Do you mean a random hour off my lifespan? So, like, I just die randomly for an hour, then come back as if nothing happened? Or do you mean I lose an hour of memory? Would it be possible to lose an hour of future memory since it's random? Could I lose the memory of when I was in the womb? Or might I lose an hour of the random daydreaming events that caused me to create an entire dimension inside my head with a soul cycle, sin cycle, and so on? To be honest, I'm gonna say no. I like my memories, even the bad ones. They've taught me a lot, and those experiences give me more wisdom to help others. Plus, it doesn't sound good to die for a random hour either. So either way, no thanks. Story 169. Someone mentioned a $10,000 button. I swear I pressed it last night, but I seriously cannot remember. I will split it with you if you can find it. Story 170. If it just erases the memories, I have been alive nearly 500,000 hours, so I would press that button a couple thousand times. The odds are quite high it will erase things I do not remember anyway. Story 171. I'll trade a good number of the 444,000 hours I've been alive. The odds of missing anything that matters are astronomically small. Story 172. Erases the memory of a random hour? Laughs in severely deficient autobiographical memory. Just keep pressing. Erases the actions and consequences of those actions from a random hour? That is more of a question. Story 173. I have a terrible memory. I'm not losing much, but I will use it sparingly so I don't forget the button rules. Story 174. I spend at least a quarter of my life sleeping. It's 25%. I will not lose anything of value. I do not remember much from before I was 7. Barely anything from before I was 10. My point is, yes, many times, the chances of me losing something of value are small. Story 175. I don't press it. The Christmas of my childhood. The summers with my grandparents. My first date. My wedding. My children being born. There are so many memories I would be scared of losing. Story 176. Can it exclude the class I retook in college and received a worse grade in because it was at 8 a.m. 3 times a week? This way, I could earn approximately $600,000, and my cumulative grade point average would increase. Additionally, my professor would avoid the frustration of watching me arrive half asleep 3/4 of the time. Win-win. Story 177. If it erased the hour I was born or the exact moment I was conceived, does that mean I simply would not exist? That is an extreme version of be careful what you wish for. It can literally remove you forever, all for the price of a used 2019 Nissan Sentra. Story 178. I can live without 1 hour. I have been alive long enough, and that hour of consciousness was not a memorable experience. Story 179. I feel like this is one of those magic tricks where they act like it will be random, but it will really be the hour you met your partner or the hour you conceived one of your children. Story 180. I have a nonverbal autistic son. I don't know how he will handle life after I die. I would set up a trust fund to give him the best quality of life and care, then press the button until I am dead. Story 181. Yes, absolutely. If it is chosen at random, the odds that it is valuable are very small. I memorize every week for free. Story 182. Most of my time is spent working. You are telling me I could not only forget that, but get paid 52 times more than I make per hour. How many times can I press it? Story 183. I know this is just a fun question. However, if you give it some thought, you realize how risky pressing one button could be. In the random hour you lose, you might lose the hour of your birth, the hour your child was born, the hour you graduated from high school or college, the hour of your life-saving surgery, the hour you definitively got sober, and so on. There are many important events you could miss. However, the seemingly unimportant moments you might miss could turn out to be pivotal to your life. These missed moments could make $10,000 look like chump change. Story 184. I would keep pushing until I felt peace, either because the pain was gone or I had enough money to not care anymore. Story 185. Random? I just know it is going to wipe out the couple I actually enjoyed, but there are so few of those I remember that could not be reproduced, the odds are decent. Story 186. Before pressing the button, I will document every aspect of my life's memories that I deem important. It will take days, months even, but I will write everything down. And then I will press the button. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.